the buck really does stop with you as the bishop. Early on, we had a cabinet meeting, and I suggested we might look at doing this or maybe looking at something else, and it was a dead silence around the table, and finally one of the district superintendents said, "Bishop, you're the bishop, you can do whatever you want to." And so that took me back a little bit, but I think you have to couch that with humility and accountability.
Hello, this is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I want to welcome you to the Wesleyan Connection. This podcast is primarily for the clergy and laity of the Holston Annual Conference. Join with me now as I take a look around the connection and share some of the things happening in the churches of our annual conference. Good morning out there. I want to welcome you to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection podcast. This is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I hope that you've been following along with me. Last week was one of those hectic kind of weeks, annual conference. I produced 8 podcasts in 3 days, so I decided to take some time off and coming back to you now on a regular schedule this morning. And I have several good podcasts lined up for the next maybe as much as 3 months or so. I got some good conversations down, and I'm going to be sharing those with you in the days that are ahead. So I want to make sure that, first of all, you realize that I did 8 podcasts in 3 days. Those will be the 8 just prior to this one on the Spreaker.com list. So make sure you check those out in case you missed them. I called them Conversations at Annual Conference, episodes 1 through 8. And it was just me sitting down and talking with various folk that I ran into, oftentimes pulling them aside, saying, "Here, let's record a conversation." And we would I would try to talk with folks that had a little bit different kind of connection to the annual conference. I talked with an Army chaplain, talked with a minister who now serves at the National Council of Churches. I had a chance to speak with 2 different bishops, Bishop Swanson, and today you're going to hear a conversation I had with Bishop David Graves of the Alabama West Florida Conference. But I think there's going to be a wide variety of conversation on a variety of topics in the weeks that are ahead. So once again, I want to encourage you to make it a weekly habit of coming back here and joining in on the conversations that I have with various folk, because these people are people that relate to our annual conference. A pastor or a bishop or a leader or someone from the local church or an evangelist. These are the people that help to make ministry possible in different kinds of ways. And I believe it's important to share their message with you. Well, today I have lined up the conversation I had with I can't call him Pastor David Graves anymore, although he's a pastor. He's now a bishop of the church, the Alabama West Florida Conference. And this one is here by pure providence because he so graciously gave me his time to record a conversation, and there was a glitch with the system, and it did not record. So I went up to him and I said, "Thank you so much for sharing. Unfortunately, you'll never hear it because the system glitched." And he said, "Well, do you want to do it again?" I said, "If you'll give me the time, I will try my best to make sure that the system is working this time." And luckily for all of us, it was. And so now I share this conversation with you from the conversation I had with Bishop David Graves.
As I was looking around today, I noticed coming down the sidewalk one of Holston's own. I'm going to see if you recognize the voice here.
I just want to say welcome to everybody in the Holston Conference. David Graves, Bishop of the Alabama West Florida Annual Conference.
We're so glad to have you back with us for our annual conference. Tell us a little bit about the Alabama West Florida Annual Conference.
Well, the Alabama West Florida Conference is a lot like the Holston Conference. Great people, wonderful churches doing wonderful ministries. The interesting thing is that it seems like everybody from Holston likes to take vacations down to the beach, especially the Gulf. And the people down in Alabama, West Florida like to come to the mountains for vacation, so that's kind of an interesting thing. But we're doing communities of transformation in our annual conference where we're really trying to churches and others are coming together to really try to combat poverty, especially, and that's one of our 4 areas of focus. Church growth is another thing that we're really looking on. Down along the Gulf Coast from Mobile to Panama City, population growth is unbelievable. Some of our largest churches are there. In fact, our largest church there is there, Cross Point in Niceville. And so we're looking at probably starting 4 or 5 new congregations in the very near future. You know, the key one of the key challenges there is in Alabama especially, football is king, and people ask, are you going to be rooting for Auburn or Alabama? And I'll say neither. I'm a Vol for life.
I'm sure there's some folks around here that will appreciate that.
Yes, yes, very much.
When you think of your annual conference, what are some of the overarching sort of ministries that sort of define that annual conference?
I believe one of the keys would be really recruiting and retaining young clergy. And one of the key things, if you're a young person in Alabama, West Florida, you can practically go to seminary for free because of the Stegall Foundation, which gives funding to help students really go debt-free. And that helps us recruit really excellent clergy. And so there's a wealth of young clergy, and that's really important when you think about all the clergy that are going to retire in the next several years. So that's a very positive thing. How we're trying to deal with poverty, how we're trying to deal with the prison system, and really the school system. How can we be a voice? The state of Alabama is 50th in the nation in school system. The state of Florida has their challenges too, especially with immigration, because we have a large Hispanic population, large number of Hispanic churches. And so how can we walk along with those brothers and sisters in the midst of these uncertain times for them?
One of the things that you have a unique perspective on that most folks don't is the transition that comes from being a local church pastor into becoming a bishop of the church. What do you think some of the things that surprised you, some of the difficulties that maybe you hadn't realized, some of the unexpected things are that when that transition happened?
Well, my time as a district superintendent here in Holston really helped me to prepare myself what the cabinet appointment making process would look like, a lot of the issues that we would have to deal with around misconduct, leadership, because people are just so hungry for leadership. But I think when I came into this role as a bishop, I was overwhelmed a little bit with the fact of how welcomed we were and how appreciated we were, and then that the buck really does stop with you as the bishop. Early on, we had a cabinet meeting, and I suggested we might look at doing this or maybe looking at something else, and there was a dead silence around the table, and finally one of the district superintendents said, "Bishop, you're the bishop. You can do whatever you want to." And so that took me back a little bit, but I think you have to couch that with humility and accountability, and that's so important because it is a partnership and not just a hierarchical process.
Well, thank you for that information. Now the most difficult theological question that the world has ever seen. Let's see how you do with it. What is your favorite dessert?
My favorite dessert is chocolate ice cream, and really anything chocolate, but chocolate ice cream would rank at number 1.
Well, thank you for sharing your time with us.
Thank you so much, Terry.
This is Pastor Goodman. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection. Be sure to check back often for more podcasts.